we've seen attacks on the Adass Synagogue in Melbourne. The Maroubra Synagogue was graffitied, along with the Newtown and South Sydney synagogues recently. And now the shocking news that a caravan packed with explosives had the address of the Great Synagogue inside it. Well, you'd be feeling very vulnerable right now if you worked in a synagogue like my next guest does. Joining me now is Chief Rabbi for Central Synagogue, Rabbi Levi Wolf. Rabbi, thank you so much for joining us now. As I've just outlined, this is a very difficult time. How are you personally coping at the moment with synagogues clearly being targeted?
I'll answer that question by posing a question to your viewers and ask them, how would they feel if they'd be hunted down? Let me put a bit of context into what I'm saying. I'm a grandchild of a single Holocaust survivor, as is my wife, Hani, a grandchild of Holocaust survivors. Australia, as you know, per capita outside of Israel, has more Holocaust survivors than any country in the world. My synagogue, the Central Synagogue, has the largest congregation of Holocaust survivors in this country. And just 2 days ago, we marked the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz and Birkenau. And we as a community, we are feeling very vulnerable. We are feeling very targeted. And quite frankly, we are feeling hunted down. And I found it actually quite telling. I don't blame him for using this language. But yesterday, when the deputy commissioner spoke about what had happened with the caravan, he used the language and he says, this was not the normal anti-Semitism. Yes. I mean, there is now the normal anti-Semitism, and then there's the abnormal anti-Semitism. So, I mean, is this all normal? We have to come to expect the normal anti-Semitism.
Look, it's such a good point, and, this shouldn't be normalised, and how has it come to be normalised? You always speak in synagogue and you give such comfort to everybody in the community, Jewish or not Jewish, so to hear you say, look, we are being hunted down, this is very confronting, Rabbi. Many Jews would now be feeling anxious, deciding whether or not to go to synagogue as per usual on Friday night or Saturday. What's your message to people who are now genuinely and understandably terrified?
So, Sherry, I want to tell you, as a Jew, I think that there's one word I would never be using, and that is the word fearful. I don't think the Jewish community should be fearful. I think that we have a tremendous miracle where God has been protecting us and looking after us. And I say that very seriously. I mean, there is no other way to try and explain how we are, after 33 centuries, being persecuted, pogroms, expulsions, Holocausts, inquisitions, and we're still here. We are still here after so much darkness, so much hate, so much suffering, and somehow we are still here. I think it was the Prime Minister of Israel, the first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, once said that to be a Jew is to appreciate that believing in miracles is a realist. There's no other way to explain how we're here today. So fear is definitely not something that we have to be concerned about. But I would have one message to those who are attempting to put fear into us, to those who are spreading hate, to those who are so vile with everything that they're doing. I would say that they are the ones who are responsible for actually, excuse the pun, rejuvenating the Jewish community more than anybody has been able to do.
More united than ever.
They have brought us together. They have created people who are all of a sudden back to their traditions, back to their roots, standing taller, being prouder. And they've also managed to have Jews who have always been traditionally on the left leave the left.
And now they're watching Sky News. They're watching you and me right now, indeed. That's one good thing to come out of it. But jokes aside, the Premier Chris Minns said today, and he says it all the time, that most Australians, the vast majority of Australians, absolutely hate what's going on. Here's what he had to say.
There are some terrible people in our community. I'm ashamed to say it, but that's the truth. Bad morals, bad ethics, bad people that will commit these acts. But Australians stand united against this appalling racism. Most Australians from every background regard this kind of hate-filled activity as the opposite of what it means to live in our country.
Yeah, and Rabbi, that's the feedback that I have as well. What's your message to the wider Australian community?
Well, firstly, I want to actually do a shout out to Chris Minns. I think he has been a strong leader with great conviction. He's hitting it out of the park. He's getting up there at every single press conference and really giving it his best. And hopefully he gets a lot of scores on the board by arresting these people and finally putting them behind bars. What I would say to the Australian community is exactly what he said. I believe that the average Australian is sick and tired. They've had enough during the summer holidays while they've been trying to relax with their families, have been bombarded by photos, by images of Nazi graffiti, of preschools being firebombed, and they've had enough. But, you know, that can't just be enough. I would say to the silent majority, it's time to no longer be silent. We now need to turn the tide in anti-Semitism. And it's one thing for leaders in government, and it's one thing for people in authorities like police forces, etc. Right now, what we need more than anything is for the average Aussie, for the average Australian citizen to call it out.
Yeah.
It is uncool to be anti-Semitic, and it's un-Australian. And unless the average Australian is going to stand out, if it's at a tea party or if it's at an evening at home or sitting with friends and having coffee, and just, you know, remember there was an advert once for those who were littering in the streets, and they had this like girl looking at her boyfriend and saying,
should be a government advertising campaign. That's a terrific
it's uncool
idea.
to be un-Australian. It's uncool to be anti-Semitic.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
a great idea.
the average and the quiet and the silent majority needs to now no longer be silent. That's where we're holding.
Rabbi, I really appreciate your time and as always, your incredible leadership of the community, especially at this incredibly difficult time.
Thank you, Shari. And to you, who have been on the forefront of really bringing this to the wider society, you've been a rock star, and thank you for everything that you've done for fighting anti-Semitism.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Thank you.